Good afternoon, everyone. I'm meteorologist Joe Chaffee. It's a Saturday at 2 o'clock, 2:02 Eastern Time. And I want to say hello to all of you that already have joined the pre-chat. As always, you are an active group and a lively group, and we like that very much. Thanks for being here. I want to welcome the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Stormwatch page viewers from Facebook, also Angry Ben's Angry Weather page from Facebook, and also my page, Meteorologist Joe Chaffee from Facebook. And we're going to add a new one, and that is welcome to those of you who are on Meteorologist Jeff Banson's page. So great that you are all joining on board. And finally, I want to welcome those of you who are coming on via my free weather app that is on Google Play. And you can just download it by going to Google Play and putting in Joe Chaffee. Spelling is right there. Cioffi. I'll take care of this right off the bat. I do have a weather support platform on Patreon, and it is just $2 a month. You get weather posts that are on the website without ads, but you also get lots of weather posts that are not on the website, some meteorology schooling, if we want to call it that, live streams just for Patreon members, which we did this morning. You can direct message me anytime, and you will get a timely response. I try to get a response back within an hour or two. And again, it's just $2 a month, and it's an easy way to support, not only support my channel, but expand your meteorology, expand your weather knowledge, and have a big leg up. If you take weather seriously, this is a good place to be. We have a lot of fun and all sorts of new stuff coming up along the way. So I'll put the link up on the chat board in just a little bit. We are, of course, are talking about this pesky little storm system that is moving across the lower Ohio Valley and has already produced some substantial snows in areas in Missouri. And I'm going to put up the snow map for you on this in just a second. We are going to talk weather in the medium and long range, which has continued the model trends of the last 4 or 5 days of becoming increasingly more bullish for cold and snow. Now, when I say that, I'm talking about for the general area of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. Now, there will be some other areas that will be drawn into this. But when I say bullish for cold and snow, that's exactly what I mean. What I don't mean is that it's a lock certainty for any given specific area. That is a short range forecast problem. So basically, what's happening is that the atmosphere is setting up like the highway. It's setting up the right highway in order to bring weather systems along and bring cold air along. And as always with the individual systems, you are going to have to look at where the troughs and ridges set up as far as the short range issues. And right now, of course, today we're seeing that the impact is in the lower Ohio Valley and in the Mid-Atlantic states. Let me also point out, by the way, that this system has evolved in a similar way to the one back in December 15th. And you might remember me saying the trend is your friend, and that oftentimes in winters, once a pattern is set, it tends to rhyme, and you start to see the storms evolve in the same way. So if you use that idea, you can guess that maybe the same areas that got hit in December and the areas that are getting hit today may wind up being the areas that get the largest amount of snow relative to everybody else in the upcoming events. I think there is a lot of support on the models for that. We will also be taking a look at the weather across the Atlantic in Europe. There are things in the upper air that are going on there that are also impacting our weather here in terms of where the troughs and ridges are setting up. But there has been, of course, we've seen some very cold and snowy conditions in Central and Southern Europe. There's been a general tendency for models to show that gradually shifting westward. We've been shooting for the period from January 20th on. As for winter weather, chances increasing for Western Europe and for England, Ireland, and Scotland, which up until now have been under a big protective upper high, and weather conditions have been relatively calm. But we see those signs of changing continuing to show up on the weather models. So, on that note, let's get going. We're going to start with the current weather conditions that are happening, all the watches and warnings, and there are a lot of them in terms of the winter storm warnings that have been posted across much of the South. I'm sorry, much of the Mid-Atlantic states. But we'll start first off with what's happened so far. And this is a tool that I used yesterday. It's another wonderful National Weather Service tool. You folks over in Europe and in England, Ireland, Scotland, you really need to get some communication over to your weather services to provide tools like this. Our weather service, in spite of the government shutdown, we have so many great weather tools that are at our disposal, and they're all absolutely free and shareable. And you folks watching from across the Atlantic, talk to your government officials about maybe getting some more stuff out there for the public for the weather service, and be a little bit more user friendly and with more information. All right, so far, one of the wonderful things about this tool is that if you scroll your mouse over a particular spot, it'll tell you what the snowfall has been. And this is ending, by the way, at 7 a.m. this morning. So we've had additional snow since then. This area is going to expand and go up. You can see that arcing area of snow across Kansas. We see some amounts there in the 8-inch range, and there's will be an expanding area of 12-inch plus snows in central Missouri, around Columbia, Missouri, a foot, Jefferson City, St. Louis as of 7 a.m. in the 8-inch plus zone, and that's going to go up. We've got 8-inch plus snows in Illinois, in south central Illinois, south of Quincy, south of Springfield. And as far as northern Illinois goes, you can see that the northern fringe is falling south of Chicago and Gary, Indiana. And the snow, of course, now we're going to see these amounts increase across central and southern Indiana. Indianapolis as of 7 o'clock this morning with about 2 inches, and Cincinnati at about an inch, and down near Louisville, some pockets of 3-inch amounts, and Evansville the same in Indiana, some 3-inch amounts. Cape Girardeau about an inch. They're on the southern flank of all of this, and Kansas City getting 4 out of this particular weather system. And here is the latest with regards to the numerous winter storm warnings that are up. We've got 2 separate areas, and also you can see the impact of the Appalachians, and that's why you see this gap of winter storm warnings in eastern Ohio, northern West Virginia, southwestern Pennsylvania. That particular area, the mountains are getting in the way. So when you get a low that's moving from west to east in this position, there's a dry zone because of the mountains, and that's it. And you get a little bit of downslope on the other side, mostly east winds that are blowing across from West Virginia back over into Missouri, with the low running to the south in northern Tennessee. So that is bullish for snow east of the mountain. So you've got the winter storm warnings that come back up in eastern West Virginia, a good chunk of Virginia, except for the southeast. And winter storm warnings have also been extended back through much of the northwestern half of South Carolina. Cold air is wedging down. Not all of that is snow. A chunk of that is going to be sleet and freezing rain. And the winter storm warnings now have been extended to cover almost all of Maryland on the latest map. And then we get to some winter weather advisories in Delaware, which I think might wind up also eventually going to winter storm warnings. Advisories in southern New Jersey. And we have the counties in southern Pennsylvania. Lancaster and York County westward is where Route 76 is probably a good line to look at as to where the winter weather advisories are posted. The Weather Service snow forecast map And this is a problem for my area, is that northern fringe of where we're going to see, where is the northern fringe of a coating to an inch going to be. And I would emphasize, because I cover a lot of the vast majority of the area of the folks that are on my social media pages, and my primary area of focus in my forecasting is northeastern Pennsylvania, much of New Jersey, and New York City, Long Island, Southern Connecticut, the lower Hudson Valley. That's my general coverage area. There's going to be a sharp cutoff where it just goes to nothing. I've been saying Route 78 is for me the line in the sand. The Weather Service line in the sand before was 195, but it looks like they have just recently expanded that northward up to Route 78. I think for the folks that are in South Jersey and the folks that are along the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, I think this area is a bit tenuous to the forecast, in that you've got two battles that you're playing. How much dry air is going to come down from the north and try to cut snow off? But at the same time, you have an ample amount of moisture and a fairly, I wouldn't say strong short wave, but certainly a strong enough short wave that if it holds together uh, as modeled, or if it's a little stronger than modeled, you could have the snow amounts increase in the other direction. I don't think we're talking big errors here, but I think that possibility does exist. The areas down through Maryland into Virginia, especially where the winter storm warnings are, I think there's a pretty good bet that you're going to see 4 to 6 inches with some locally higher amounts, particularly along the I-81 corridor. So we're talking Charlottesville, Lynchburg, down to about Roanoke, Lexington, Virginia. I think could certainly be in that 4 to 6 inch range, with some amounts going higher. You start to go north, southern New Jersey. I think there's a pretty good chance that you're going to wind up with 2 to 3 inches, and maybe we can nudge those amounts a little bit a shade higher. Same for southern Pennsylvania, the areas that are under the winter weather advisory, 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches. And again, that door open that we could nudge the amounts a little higher if dry air becomes less of an issue. Now, we'll jump down to the surface map because this is pretty much what you need when you're looking at weather situations regarding, well, what should I have on the surface? What do we really want? Well, you want a cold air source to the north that's not in a rush going anywhere fast. And we have that in the form of this big, large high that is sitting north of Lake Superior and has been sitting there for the last couple of days. The big storm from a few days ago that intensified in eastern Canada and just kind of sat there for a couple of days, it has kind of put this log jam in the atmosphere. So it has held the high in place. And in fact, it's still taking its sweet time as it moves out through Labrador. So the high is just essentially sandwiched in between that low that's up in Labrador and another one that's up in north central Canada, west of Hudson Bay. So with the high sandwiched in the middle, you have very, very cold air that's draped around to the west and to the east, and particularly to the east. You see how the isobars come down? I'll make sure you can see it, and you can. But you see how these the isobars come down southward and then make their turn into North Carolina, and you've got all this cold air that's draining down through upstate New York, Pennsylvania, into Virginia, North Carolina, is getting all wedged in east of the mountains and trapped. It can't go anywhere. In fact, if you look at how the map is analyzed, you've got this kind of bizarre warm front that snakes around, and the high actually even wedges down into northern Georgia. That is that cold air just pushing. It's just basically the weight of that cold air is just forcing its way southward and then southwestward into the southern Appalachians. And low itself, as of 10 o'clock this morning, was analyzed in eastern Oklahoma. And this too is just moving very, very slowly to the east. And if you look at the stationary boundary here that runs from the low across Arkansas and in through Tennessee and along the Tennessee-Kentucky border. This is probably where you're going to see this low meander its way eastward before it eventually pops up and redevelops off the North Carolina coast sometime on Sunday. Radar is pretty busy. You've got that comma signature that you always want to see with regards to when you're dealing with a system that has some intensity to it. Now, here's the issue. Starting now and going through tonight and tomorrow, that northern part of the jet stream is going to weigh heavily. Remember, we've been speaking about the fact that we have these northwest winds in eastern Canada across New England, and that this is really acting, it's trying to suppress all this to the south. The radar actually does show snow now north of Chicago, at least aloft, and the snow that's reaching the ground is probably just to the south of Chicago in that east-west green band. Back through Missouri, you've got some more snow and probably some freezing rain that is sweeping up ahead of the low center. So there might be some low level, some mid-level warm air that is coming up, and the cold air at the surface is trapped. But the signature comma shape telling us that the upper air system, the upper air low, is moving pretty much eastward. And for folks that are in my area, I said this yesterday, and I'll say it again today. When you look at this and you think, well, this looks impressive, so how is it we're missing it? And again, it's because of those northwest winds that are going to be still pretty dominant in southeastern Canada and over into New England, just not allowing this to lift up. It would need to lift up at least a little bit to the northeast, which is what some of the models did back about 5 or 6 days ago, taking it south of Cape Cod. But it's a double-edged sword. You need that northern jet there to bring the cold air down, so that's where you got that big high setting up. But at the same time, if it doesn't get out of the way, it has to get out of the way enough to allow the moisture to come in. If it gets out of the way too much, then the cold air loses its anchor, and you wind up with the weather system that tracks up the Appalachians and then brings warm air up the East Coast. If it doesn't get out of the way at all, you have a situation like this, and then your heavy snows are focused further south into the mid-Atlantic states. So Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and the cities I mentioned in Virginia, Charlottesville, Lynchburg, Roanoke, Lexington, wind up with the heavier snow. And there is a band of frozen and freezing precipitation now breaking out ahead in North Carolina and on up into southwestern Virginia. And I'm going to be paying very close attention to this as it moves into Washington and Baltimore as to how much of that is actually reaching the ground, because that is at least going to give me an indication of how important the dry air is over the Northeast. We've got dew points down in the low and mid single digits with temperatures in the upper 20s to around 30. The air is very, very dry here. So we could wind up with a situation where you've got the models showing all this precip that moves into the dry air, and, well, it all evaporates before it reaches the ground. You got a great snowstorm at 1,000 and 1,500 feet, but the flakes never make it to the ground because they just get eaten up by all the dry air. So let's start off with the HRRR model. The new 18Z HRRR model is on its way out right now. But we're going to go back, and that's one that is a good one because it goes out 36 hours on most days. Otherwise, the standard HRRR only goes out to 18. But here we have for later this afternoon. I kind of jumped ahead here, but starting with 1 o'clock is where that first map is. So if you look at this for 3 p.m., we're at 2:22 Eastern time. So if you look at this, and I'll pull the radar shot back. They actually match up pretty well. So the HRRR seems to, with this system at the moment, seems to have a good handle on things, because this is supposed to be the radar, what it thinks is the radar presentation. Again, here is what it looks like. And you can see it there. This is what the radar actually looks like. And this is what the HRRR says it's going to look like in about 37 minutes. So it might actually be a little bit underdone in the areas in Virginia and into North Carolina, but we'll see. And you have that area lifting up to the northeast. You see initially it does thin out, so it hits the dry air. Meanwhile, you've got this arcing snow that goes back from Ohio, back over through northern Indiana into northern half of Illinois, still back through Missouri, and now we are at 9 p.m. And at this point, we've got snow into much of southern and western Pennsylvania. You've got the snow down in northern Virginia. There's a gap, and then you've got more precip as that surface low, which is at this point somewhere near Memphis, Tennessee, is pushing out to the east. So you're going to get a second surge of precip that's going to develop. This will be the main area of snow, I believe, when this is all said and done. Now, for my area, you watch that northern fringe of snow. This is at this will show you the struggle. This first shot is at 10 p.m. So if you want to believe this, if the HRRR is right, at 10 p.m., we're going to have snow on the radar to central New Jersey, running northwest into northwestern Pennsylvania. But because of that dry air, you'll notice that that northern edge takes a while. It's at 2 a.m. You start to see the echoes in and around New York City and northern New Jersey and Long Island, and watch what happens here, because by 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., that dry air takes its toll and that northern fringe is wiped out. Meanwhile, to the south, as the surface low continues to slowly move its way east, and you start to see that expanding second area of snow through Virginia and some ice down in areas to the southeast and also into western North Carolina. But by 4 a.m., it's now really all about the low and the moisture that's to the south, because that northern fringe has dried up because of the very low dew points. And the fact that it's all moving straight east is telling you that it's being suppressed. You've got the upper air winds just not supportive to bring this more to the northeast and up the coast. But 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and that's as far as it goes. So 6 a.m. on Sunday, snowing in all of northern Virginia. You've got this band of sleet and freezing rain, probably more sleet than anything else, on the southeast flank there in the purple, down into southwesternmost Virginia and into interior North Carolina. One surface low there near Nashville. Another low pops up to the northwest of Charleston. Now let's see if we got the 18Z, how far out we have. And we actually have it out to 18 hours. So we can see if there's been any change in this going forward. I mean, it looks like it's pretty much the same through 18. There's that wall that gets to about New York City at 1 a.m. And then again, that dry air just eats that northern fringe away. The second area expands across Virginia into Maryland and Delaware, and then we have out to 19 hours. So this is by 8 a.m. Now, again, that dry air taking its toll, it also now is taking its toll and it's sinking southward. So if this is correct, the snow cuts off at this point in southern Pennsylvania, and actually starts to cut off a bit in Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. In Baltimore, but you still have this surge coming up from the south. So it reloads. You see how it just kind of drops down, and then you've got this surge from the south that comes up. How far north that area gets during the day tomorrow is going to be really the key for snow amounts in that tenuous area I described, northern Maryland, southern Pennsylvania, and then across into southern New Jersey. I think as far as Maryland, when you get down closer to Baltimore, and particularly as you start heading toward Washington, D.C. and into Virginia, I don't think this is going to be an issue. You're going to be, smack into the heart of the precip there, and also probably for eastern Maryland and Delaware. And southern New Jersey's in that spot where if this moisture winds up getting enhanced a little bit to the northeast as the surface low starts to develop, that you could wind up getting some accumulating snow with at least a few inches out of all of this. We are also going to be able to look at the SREF, which is was very interesting earlier today. But let me switch over to the NAM at this point. Now, the NAM today, uh, I want to be a little careful with this. The NAM is a mesoscale model. So, it looks at the small features that the global models sometimes tend to smooth over. And it was a, it also shows the impact of that dry air. Watch how it just kind of comes up and then all of a sudden it just disappears. You've got snow at midnight, but the snow on the NAM is further south. That northern fringe never makes it really to New York City at all, like it does with the HRRR. But it does also have much more going on across southern Pennsylvania and southern New Jersey. It really enhances a band of heavy precip, a narrow band of heavy precip during the day on Sunday across southern Pennsylvania and into southern New Jersey. Honestly, I think it's overdone. I don't know, for some reason, sometimes the NAM does this. It actually gave Philadelphia 9/10 of an inch of liquid. So it would say that Philadelphia gets almost 10 inches and New York City gets absolutely nothing. It's very, very tight. Look at the moisture field here. Again, I'm kind of suspect with this. So it is, you see how, in fact, I'll get it close up. It's easier to see on the close-up view. But look at all this precip that it generates over Delaware and in eastern Maryland back to Washington, D.C. I mean, if this were right, you'd see 1 foot amounts here. I just think it's way overdone. I think you have to cut it back by 40 to 50%. And again, sometimes the NAM will do this and it'll be right. But I looked at the NAM 3 today with regards to at least something similar. And if you look at the NAM 3, I think the NAM 3 probably makes a bit more sense to me, where it's got 2 and 3 and some 4/10 inch amounts down across southern Pennsylvania and southernmost New Jersey. And then you start to get into the 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch total liquids back in through much of Maryland once you get away from the PA border, much of Maryland, down into Virginia. Here's where you have you get a 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch of liquid, and you wind up with your 4, 5, 6, maybe even some 7, 8 inch amounts in the favorite areas in Virginia, south and west of the Washington, D.C. area. So I'm going to go with the idea that the NAM is a little bit, the regular 12-kilometer NAM that we look at is overdone, and just stick with what I've got, which is actually a shade lower with what the Weather Service is forecasting with the amounts. I put out a final call map yesterday. Let me see if I can. If I don't think I saved it here. But if you give me 1 second, folks, I can try and find it. I'll show you my final call map. Okay, and by the way, you can go to my website, meteorologistjoechaffee.com, and pull these maps up for yourself at any time. Okay, so let's see, we can bring this here. And I'll pull up the wide view. Okay, so hang on. I have to do a little bit of maneuvering here. Where'd you go? All right, hang on, folks. I'm sorry. It opened up in a separate window. Just give me 1 second. I got up very early today. Oh, okay, I know what I need to do. Get rid of this. Now, there we go. All right. So this was my final call map from yesterday, and I've made no changes to this at all. I'm covering for a coating to an inch, reaching up to New York City, northern New Jersey, and northeastern Pennsylvania. That area could very well wind up with nothing, or it may just kind of be patchy here and there. And then I looked at Route 195 in central New Jersey, and I drew a line up into northwest PA. That's my northern fringe of 1 to 2. I have southern New Jersey and southern Pennsylvania south of Route 76 at 2 to 3. 2 to 3 for much of northeastern Maryland. I may have to juice that part of it up. Maybe expand that 4-inch plus box that I have in Virginia, south and west of Washington, D.C., and expand that northeastward and then eastward across into Delaware. So the bottom line is where I've got the red box, that's where I think the heaviest snow is going to be through all of this, with a moderate snowfall inside that that purplish box. And I think that's a reasonable way to look at. You realize that when you ask a weather forecaster to give you his forecast idea for a snow amount, that you're essentially asking him to give you an accurate flake count. Okay, and that just isn't going to happen. Uh, I get upset sometimes because of the way people seem to think that they are entitled to certitude from me when it comes to this sort of stuff. And they haven't apparently learned over the years that weather just doesn't work that way. I just don't understand what it is that they seem to think that I'm supposed to be able to give them an answer regarding snow amounts and a snow count. There were it's probably also the world we live in where everybody expects an absolute answer for everything and get all upset when they don't get it. Well, you're not going to get it from me. I do the best I can, and that's what's up there. So you guys here are savvy. You know what this is all about. So if you're watching this and you're into this video already for 35 minutes, you understand all of that. But I'm just venting. Okay, so let's look at the long range, and then we're going to look at Europe. I have not forgotten you guys. So you're getting a good meteorology lesson about the weather across North America. Everything that we've been talking about over the last several days continues to go on. The pattern change has occurred, okay? We've been discussing what a long and grinding process this is. We are 12 days since the polar vortex in the stratosphere split, and we're already seeing results of that with this winter storm this week that's happening now. Now, of course, you've got the establishment of this polar jet. There's a vortex developing up in northeastern Canada. You see it there. You've got this long flow that runs from northern Canada southward. This is, by the way, the forecast for Tuesday, January 15th. So you've got this long jet that runs southward into the northern plains and across the Great Lakes. It's not a particularly strong jet, but it is in its developing process. The what we've been referring to as the fire hose jet in the Pacific is no longer a fire hose jet in the Pacific. The polar jet has now created a split flow. You've got a strong Pacific jet with strong systems and tons of moisture coming in, and you've got the polar jet to the north. You've got two very important pieces here, two active streams, and with the addition of with the addition of cold air that is now going to be coming down far enough south, it is always going to be the delicate balance between the cold air and the warm air, and also the timing of these weather systems as they move along. You're going to have short waves coming down in the northern stream. You're going to have shortwave troughs moving along in the southern stream, and models are going to be doing their usual thing of timing them differently as we go forward. The remarkable thing with the series of model runs from since yesterday is that all the major models, all of them, have a very similar look to them toward the end of next week. The fine-tuned details are still yet to be worked out, but they all have the idea. So now it's going to be a matter of figuring out where. I think it's fair to say that there is going to be a threat for snow and another important snowfall late next week into next weekend. Mid-Atlantic states, somewhere in there again. Remember, it rhymes. Maybe this time around, we could see the northern flank being a bit further north, as this one is further north than the one back in December. So if you watch the upper air, that rotation going on in Canada, you look at the Pacific, watch those systems come in off the Pacific and then move in and drop southward, and now you're waiting for an arm, a shortwave trough coming down in the north, and how it reacts to the system here in the south. And in the case of today's run, it actually got very vigorous, where it closes off an upper low off the Delaware coast early next week. And when I say early next week, now we're talking about the week of the 20th. And once that lifts out, guess what? Here comes the next one. And in fact, a very strong vortex. The GFS has actually been telegraphing a very strong, rather strong vortex to drop down into the Great Lakes. So that is suggesting that we could have a rather impressive dump of cold air coming down at some point in the week of January 21st. And that lifts up. And guess what? Here comes another one. And so on and so on. Look across what's happening, by the way, look across what's happening in the northern Pacific and also in the North Atlantic. You've got ridges on either side that are building across the top, producing higher than normal pressures and heights throughout the entire Arctic region. This is a signature of a negative Arctic oscillation, much like the negative North Atlantic oscillation and the negative East Pacific oscillation. All at this point, it is we don't have the teleconnections because of the actual numbers and charts because of the government shutdown. They are not deemed essential, but because of these developments that you see here, I can tell you just visually, knowing where the geographic areas that those indices are calculated, looking for pressure changes, calculating basically the pressure change in those specific zones. You are in a situation here where you're going to have a negative NAO, a negative EPO, which is always, I think, is the more important one because that's the signature for cold, and you're going to have that negative AO, the Arctic oscillation, and you're going to have a positive Pacific North America index because you're going to have a ridge mostly in the west and a deep trough out in the east. So we're going to be going into a period here where all the teleconnection indices are probably going to be in their most favorable positions for cold weather in the eastern United States. The European, as I said, the models are all kind of in the same general idea here. The European, same thing, strengthening polar jet. You've got the split flow that develops. Energy comes in from the Pacific, drops down in the southern stream. It handles what it does with it on the East Coast a little bit differently than the GFS, but not that differently. And then you start to kind of line up to see what happens with the next round as it progresses through the week of January 21st. So without getting too much specific, without getting too specific, it's going to ultimately wind up looking something like this. And then we're going to go look at Europe. And then I'm going to come back to the board with and talk to you guys directly. So I have the European surface here. And all right, so here's our system for today. Okay, so this goes out. It moves straight east. You can see it doesn't lift up. That high to the north just suppresses everything. And then that low moves away. Now, we're going to have another cold front come through sometime on Wednesday with another high moving up into northern New York. That's going to pull out. And you're going to have yet another front. And if you look up in the northern plains, this is another big cold high that's coming down. You've got a front with lower pressures going back through Kentucky, Tennessee, and on up in through Arkansas, and then another low back through Colorado. So it's kind of like the bottom of the bowl here. And that's where your low is going to come out. Now, in the transition with this front approaching, there's probably going to be some warm advection precip Thursday night into Friday morning. That could be some snow that ends as some rain. That front comes through, and the high starts to sort of stretch out. Some of it goes into eastern Canada. Some of it hangs back through the plains. Eventually, the high moves over the northern lakes, and you get a very sizable wave from northern Louisiana on today's run. Again, we're still in the adjustment process, and that low runs off the North Carolina coast. This would suggest a substantial snow event for Kentucky, Tennessee, and on up in through North Carolina, Virginia. The northern edge this time around might make it further north up into southern New England, maybe just south of Boston. So if you draw a line from Boston to the I don't know, the Hudson Valley, if you go north of Poughkeepsie, for example, which is north of New York City by about 50 or so miles. If you go a little bit further north than that to continue the line, maybe into northeastern Pennsylvania, and then started moving it west-southwestward from there, it would produce a substantial snowfall in that particular area. But this is very early in the game, and we've got a lot of adjusting to do with the models in the long term. I'm just looking at the parallel GFS on this because, of course, the models are going to be looking at things a bit differently to some respect. Here, what the parallel GFS is showing is that you've got several pieces coming out, and each piece brings the cold. It takes longer to get the cold front through, so each piece has to do its job, and it moves the cold front. The first one is for Friday, as I mentioned, that warm advection precip. Then it's got a second wave that it comes up for Saturday that goes a little further to the east and brings some snow up into Indiana and northern Ohio and western New York. Then that goes by. And then you got to wait. This is the point now after the second piece goes by, you've got cold air coming in and building in. And then you've got a third low. And this is the one that goes crazy with snowfall. Again, this is the parallel GFS's view for next weekend. Again, not the most important thing here at this point, when you see these things, the most important thing at this point when you're looking at the long range is you want to see a thread of similarity in the models. That is your takeaway. If if the upper air pattern is similar and they're all doing it, it leads to a high degree of confidence that it's going to happen. Something's going to happen, and it's been over 3 days of this. So now we're going to go to Europe, and just by chance, I happened to pull up the 204-hour forecast for Monday, January 21st, that has some snow going on in England and Ireland and Scotland. So let's see how we get there. All right. First, the upper air. If you're new to this channel, by the way, and you are still here, that's great. Okay, because this is a lot. 45 minutes of weather. Where else are you going to find somebody that's going to do 45 minutes of weather and then take questions? And we're not even done yet. So here's the upper air in Europe. You have this big upper high where you see all the browns and the purples up in the over on the left. That is the big upper high, the big upper ridge that's been sitting there for what seems like forever. So you've got this deep trough in Central Europe that drops another trough down into Southern Europe. This is the third or fourth one that's dropped down there. The key for Western Europe and for England and Scotland is that that ridge has to break down. And in fact, as we go through next week, I'm sorry, the first few frames were from the last couple of days. The ridge is already beginning to shift westward and still holding together there off the coast as we go through Sunday, but it does start to weaken, drops southwestward. You've got another deep trough here. Look at this very deep trough that comes into interior Europe and drops down into the eastern part of the Mediterranean. So that's a serious cold shot and probably some snows with that. The ridge weakens, and then you start to you got it finally to a point where it weakens enough that you start to see upper air troughs swinging across England and Ireland and bringing weather systems through. This is next Wednesday. So you've got a weather system coming through. Looks like another one along about Friday. Then a stronger one that comes through. This is January 20th and going into the 21st. So the third one seems to be strong enough with enough cold air with it that you might see some areas in England and Ireland and Scotland getting some snow. And then as we move through January 22nd and 23rd, this one, okay, assuming that the model doesn't change very much. And, one of the things I've noticed lately in the runs is that they've been very consistent. They haven't really changed too much. But look at this. I mean, this is right. This is some big push of cold air coming down into your neck of the woods. And the trough really shifts to Western Europe here. So, and now we're at January 27th, which, by the way, is my birthday. So I will be 60 years old. So I always love it. I've had a number of big snowstorms on my birthday, and that is the best gift I can get is to get accumulating snow. It doesn't have to be a lot. Around the days of the 27th of January, I am very happy. Preferably before the 27th or just before. It happens on the 28th. It's kind of a letdown. So anyway, here's how it looks on the surface. So you've got snows through Poland into the Ukraine with that push, with that storminess that we indicated. That's a very intense storm that is up in near Russia. Or is that? I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get That's over Finland. I'm sorry. And then that moves out. You also have a pretty sizable storm in the Mediterranean that looks like it brings snows to Turkey, a good chunk of Turkey, and then northeastward from there. All right, so finally, Wednesday, you start to get a system that brings some showers in England, and maybe a little bit of snow up in the Highlands of Scotland. That moves away. Then here comes the one for the 18th, another weather system, not overly cold with that. We're really waiting for that third one, and that is the one for the 20th, 21st. That, I think, stands a good chance to bring snow. And now let's see what that big upper. Look at this. I mean, this is really impressive if this holds together. If the models stay consistent with this. This is at day 9, so we're talking January 22nd here. There's a very intense low that is sitting south of Iceland that moves right over England and Ireland with very, very cold air with it. And that is your snow producer there, folks. So we're going to be watching to see if models hold on to this. And that snow, by the way, winds up getting into France and Spain, especially in the mountainous areas. And you still have at least a tap of cold air with some follow-up weather systems as we go into the long range. So this is you've got 10 days, okay? You actually have less. I've been saying about the 20th, 21st, that's been kind of holding up with every model run. So we're going to shoot for that first and see what happens. And then let's see in the next couple of days where if the models are really dead serious with this idea of this rather strong storm that moves to England and Scotland. The snowfall, the total snowfall here, this is for 10 days now, so it takes us into the 22nd, all right? So we're at noon on the 22nd. So we're going to be adding to this, obviously, if we could have extended the map further. But you see how the snow areas as you go into Central and Eastern Europe and into Russia, and then on up north into Scandinavia, substantial. The amounts tail off as you go west, and that's because of that ridge. The snow really makes its appearance in the latter part of this 10-day period. So you start to get some snow for the middle of next week well to the north, and then you'd start to see it gradually increase. Again, it's that 20th, 21st time frame is the first shot, and then the 22nd, 23rd, I think, would be the second shot, at least what the models, that's what the models are telling us. And I'm just going to go back to the U.S. with the snow map for the next 10 days. And I'm going to use the operational GFS. Let's not look at the specific amounts, but let's look at the coverage, okay, in terms of the southernmost flank, where the southern flank of this, in terms of potential, even a coating of snow, extends pretty far down to the south into northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, northernmost Georgia. Some of this is now, some of this is with the systems for the end of the week, and some of it is for other systems down the road. You can see the big area that is draped across the upper Midwest, I'm sorry, the northern areas of the Ohio Valley, not the upper Midwest, the northern areas of the Ohio Valley to about Chicago in that east-west band. Obviously, a lot of that includes what's happening today, and also for the mid-Atlantic states, some of that includes what is happening today. So, look, overall, I stick with what I'm sticking with what I've been saying. We have a very bullish pattern for cold and snow going forward. That is the general statement. Okay, in terms of the who, the what, the where, and the how much, excluding this short range issue with all its uncertainties. Um, that is for tomorrow's live stream and the live stream for the next day and the next day and the next day, and God willing, for as long as I can do them. Okay, let's see if there's a little bit more of the HRRR, shall we? You're getting quite a show today, folks. We're doing a lot of stuff. The maps, by the way, that we use are, of course, from Levi Cowan's most amazing site, tropicaltidbits.com. And we strongly recommend that you take advantage. It's a free site. And he's got good stuff, too. And take a look. If you're on my Patreon page, you look at the maps, you don't understand it, shoot me a message. We'll have a conversation about it. So another advantage of being on my subscription sites. Here's the HRRR's total snowfall. So let's see what it does. It's pretty bullish across into Virginia, which is what we expect, and also into southeastern Maryland toward the Delaware border. You start to get those 2 and 3 inch amounts in southern New Jersey. This is out to Sunday evening. So, and the northern flank gets to just about New York City before it dies. I think this is kind of where I'm at in the forecast. And we may actually be able to jump on to see the very beginnings of the new NAM to see, what world it's putting us in. All right, so this is 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Again, that northern flank, how much of that is actually reaching the ground? We've got 1 a.m. right to New York City. The snow lovers in New York City are going to be salivating, and because the radar is going to have it right at the doorstep. Brings it in, and then if the dry air just gets rid of it, just shaves off the top, and it sinks southward by 4 a.m. It shuts off in Pennsylvania, believe it or not. And then that dry air is really formidable. And then, of course, now you've got the moisture with the low now as it's moving eastward and attempting to redevelop. So you've got that flank increasing across Virginia. So you can see how that becomes the max area. And then during Sunday morning, you kind of get a little bit of a push back up to the Pennsylvania line and definitely into the southern New Jersey counties before finally it just sort of pulls away to the east with lingering snows back through Delaware, Maryland, and eastern Virginia. So that's pretty consistent. Now, let's see how much of the new NAM we have. And we have out to 20 hours, which is into Sunday morning. So let's take a look. And all right, so 1 a.m. Look at this, folks. Look how that dry air, at least on the NAM, it just never even gets close. It gets to 195 and then just dies. And then it suddenly redevelops. I wonder if that's, that is really weird. Why would it do that? That is strange. And look, it's as if the radar just kind of explodes for an hour and then it starts sinking southward again. That's very odd that it does that. Well, no matter. I mean, that's just real strange. Meanwhile, so this is at 7 a.m. If the NAM is right, there is snow to the doorstep of New York City, with heavier snows in the darker blues further south. By 9 a.m., it sinks fairly quickly to the south, so that it's almost done in Pennsylvania. The darker blues is where you see the heavy snow. That looks like it's sitting right over Washington, D.C. and just south of Baltimore. So just for laughs, let's see what it gets out of this in terms of snow. And, it kind of matches up with that HRRR's total map. At least this is through, again, this is actually through 7 a.m. So we're missing No, it's actually right through 7 a.m. because this map is every 3 hours. So it actually brings a coating of snow to northern New Jersey and into western Long Island. And well, we'll use that second shading. That this is kind of like what I've got really. It's that second shading would be like a coating to an inch, and then you get to that 1 to 2 inch band, and then the 2 to 3 inch band, and the 4 inch plus band is this, the big purplish area down in the southwest. So I don't think we're going to get any revelations out of this further. Let me switch back one more time to the surface map. We actually have out a couple of more hours, so let's see what happens. So starting from 7 a.m. Sunday, starts to shrink south, and we're at 9 a.m. I'm sorry, so I guess that's where we were. My mistake. All right, really fast. I've got this tool. This is called the SREF, or what we affectionately call as Les Plumes. And those of you who watch The Honeymooners know where that's from. Pierre-Francois Delabriowski, Norton's hero, who he thought built the Paris sewers, but in reality condemned them. This model runs every 6 hours. It comes out at 8:45, 2:45 a.m. and 8:45 and 2:45 p.m. And there are about 20 some odd members to this model series, and you can see them here. I got all the boxes checked, and there are different parameters that you can look at, from temperature, dew point, total liquid precipitation, and total snow. So on the 15Z, if you go down to the map, you can pull up various points and get snow total. So I've just punched up Hanover, Pennsylvania, and the total snow on the this is the 9Z run, so we should have the 15Z. Hanover, Pennsylvania actually went up from 5.5 to just under 6.25 inches on the new run. I try not to focus on the amounts, because when you've got you're taking a whole bunch of different variations of these models and you're averaging them out, you're going to have some of them that are going to do some really squirrely things. Like, for example, you've got one member here at the very top that's producing 15 inches of snow. Okay, that seems ridiculous. One of the takeaways I've got from this that I can tell you right off the bat that's important is that even the lowest member gives 1 3/4 inches. So the mean is the black line, and that's where we kind of focus on. And what we look for is the trend. Are the amounts going up? Are they going down? And to follow the trend, and the trend continues to be higher. Harrisburg will run across southern Pennsylvania. Harrisburg is at 4.7. And I just want to see what they were on the prior one, because I don't remember. 5.81. So it actually went up for the area to the south and down for the area to the north. I just want to pull up a couple of points. If you swing over to the map, there's a number of points that are key for the New York City area down to Philadelphia. So we'll look at Philadelphia first. And it's at 7.17 for Philadelphia, which I believe is a little higher from the earlier. And I'll explain why that is the case. And this is another reason why you have to be careful when you use this. Okay, so at 15Z, the old mean was for 9Z, it was 6.33. For 15Z, it's now, that's why I got to be careful when I run these, 5.55. So it came down a little in Philadelphia. I'll look at Atlantic City, because the South Jersey counties have me concerned. It's actually come down a little bit for there, because I think they had 9 for Atlantic City earlier. Now they have 7. Long Branch also came down a little bit. The area in between Toms River and Atlantic City, 7.17. That's about the same. Let's look at Baltimore. Wow, Baltimore went up to 13.4 from 10.5 earlier. Washington, 11, that's up also an inch. So it looks like in general, the SREF is increasing snows as you go, south of Pennsylvania down into Virginia and eastern Maryland. I want to just look at Dover, and then I'll punch up Wilmington. 10 at Dover, 6 at Wilmington. So just when you get south of the PA, right along or just north of the PA border, somewhere in there, maybe draw a line from there, and then kind of curve it down toward the New Jersey coast. It looks like the amounts as you go south on the southern side of this are increasing. The amounts on the northern side are decreasing. I want to look at New York City because earlier today this thing really just kind of went crazy. I mean, it's still giving New York City 1.67. I mean, I'd love to see it, but the problem is, look at the member. By the way, in New York City, one member gives 15 inches. Now, look where it happens, though. It happens between. There's very little, if anything, that falls through Sunday evening, but actually brings us in Sunday night and Monday. So what it's saying is, and the members that are doing that are producing the big numbers, are the members that are saying that this coastal low is going to get hung up and somehow get nudged up more to the north. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. The upper air is just not there for it. If it, I don't know that it's even remotely there. I just want to I'm going to pull the upper air out. Yeah, you see what's happening here. This is why the NAM. You got that dry air, and then now you're getting the coastal low starting to energize a bit, and this is what is enhancing the snow for the second round for later Sunday. This is at 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon. So it would suggest that south of 195, back across southern Pennsylvania, there's kind of this second surge of accumulating snow. The members that bring this northward are the ones that they're doing it by taking this low and sliding it up northeastward, as models did many days ago south of Cape Cod. I just don't think that's going to happen because of the fact that if on the upper air, you still have this northern jet. Now the NAM is kind of pulling it out, and you do have the short wave. The southern short wave is got a little more definition to it. You can see that the little line here, how it goes from south southwest north northeast to about New York City and turns straight east. This shortwave would have to pull out a bit more, and you'd have to get much more definition with this southern shortwave in order to really create a problem here. But it's interesting how that's happened. Here's that northern jet, and then there's your southern stream system. It starts to get squashed, but then the northern jet's trying to pull out, and as a result, the southern system maintains a bit more definition. I think that's why you're seeing some of these models doing what they're doing. I really do rate that as a long shot. I would like to have seen some support coming from somewhere other than one version of the NAM model doing that. And sometimes you do get that support, and sometimes you don't. I just whenever I see something like this, you think you have it all figured out, and then you get a complication, and it makes forecasting ever so difficult. So if you've gotten one takeaway from all of this, it ain't easy, okay? It just simply is not easy. All right, so on the board tonight, or this mid-afternoon, Robert Sabatino, you joined on late. I don't know what happened to the ocean effect snow. I just kind of was talking about it briefly with Joe Rayo. Maybe that would have been the case for tonight and tomorrow morning in some places, but you just don't have really the right setup. Sometimes you can get the atmosphere to saturate under certain conditions. This wasn't really one of them. It was probably a big stretch on my part to even bring it up. I don't know. I just kind of play with possibilities sometimes when it comes to that. Marquise Vincent, which link would you like? I have the SREF link. If I'll put it up on the chat. If you're not on the chat board, if you just Google this stuff, SREF, SREF weather model. There's even a section in Wikipedia about it, believe it or not. But I just put the link back up there if that's what you were looking for. Oh, good God. My mail program decides to send me notifications in the middle of my live stream. Let's see, light flurries in Central Virginia was that Stafford? Your I scrolled too quickly. Stafford, Fabian Bartolos, thanks for letting us know that. Again, that at least one of the things, as I said earlier, I'm looking for is, what exactly is going to be produced by those radar echoes that we're seeing down in Virginia. Okay, so you got the SREF link up for you. What's the National Weather Service snowfall current? Okay, 99, the current map. Okay, so this is as of 7 a.m. This is the graphical analysis that is pretty useful. So I'm going to give that to you here. So here's the link to the Weather Service's graphical analysis of the actual snowfall that has fallen, and you can look at it in stretches of 24, 48, or 72, 72 hours. I'm not wishing my life away. I'm not. I love watching it, how it all develops. I think that's a really good point. Especially when you look at weather, you got to. The best approach to it is to sit back and just watch things evolve. You learn so much about how the atmosphere works, and just how you know what's the word? I mean, you really are threading needles all the time with this. It's not that simple. And one of the things that I've learned is that now that I pay much closer attention to weather in other parts of the country, because I'm doing these streams every day, and you folks are watching from all over the place, and I've learned that, hey, the same cold air, warm air, rain, snow line struggles that happen for me also happen in a lot of places that I used to just sort of assume that, well, everything is snow up in Wisconsin. Everything is snow up in Iowa and in Minnesota, and it really isn't. Scott Briller, thanks for hitting Super Chat. I really appreciate it. You didn't have to do that. Thank you very much. You do plenty already. Anthony Orr, my one of two resident statisticians here. Thanks for being here, and you're also the best, by the way. Anthony's good at finding really good, fun facts. He digs them up from somewhere. Scott Briller, the same thing. You just sort of go in there with their shovels, and they pull out these great statistical numbers. And Anthony's really good with the hurricane stuff, which is awesome. I used to be very good at it, and then I turned 50 one day, and my mind just kind of started to go to jello when it comes to comes to retaining all that long-term weather data information in my brain. Okay, so Timothy, you're a July baby, so yeah, that's not going to happen. You need to go. Yeah, you need to go South America or Australia. James NASCAR, 32 degrees. That's as high as it gets around here today. At least we have no wind. Zim, I think it's your birthday, is it not? Happy birthday. 4 to 6 works for you. I'm pretty comfortable with that. With that. FB3, for temperature, I didn't even look at the temperatures. That's with that big vortex coming down. It's got -11. Oh my! Look, I will say this without getting specific, but if we get a big, at some point through this pattern, there's going to be a sizable polar dump coming down. Okay, and if that's the case, there is going to be some pretty wicked cold air. Now we'll see how it sets up and when, but that is I got to check that out. Hang on a second. FV3 hour 3:36. Was that you, Seth Dominus, that said that? I lost your. Um, I lost the post. If whoever said that, I'm going to take a look. Thanks for pointing that out to me. Monet Bear, glad to see you. A little windy in Atlanta and cold. Yeah. This pattern, by the way, as it evolves, is likely to bring. It's going to be cold air pretty far south at some point. I think. Let me just run this back up. Just checking your chats, and then I'm going to check the that minus 11. Hang on. Okay, so okay, I got to see this. All right, so I'm going to put the close up. put the temperature. And let's get the FV3. And it's loading, so let me run forward. Well, this is hour 216, where it's got temperatures down near 0. This is Monday, January 21st. And then that retreats. Hour 288, single digits to below 0. Oh my, look at this. So this is hour 312. Look at the minus, look at that. Minus 15, 20, minus 30s in Canada there. This is hour 312. Wow. 336. Is that a minus 11 that it prints over there in New York City? I can't see. There's a minus 11 at Bridgeport. That's insane. That is really insane. But again, if you look at, it's always about the upper air. And I'll go wider. Look at the extent of this brutal cold dump. And let's look at the upper air, what it looks like. It's where it has that vortex coming down. I mean, yeah, look, if you wind up with this, if you wind up with the upper air like this, very low heights, deep trough there in the east. We're probably coming off a major storm of some kind somewhere. And indeed, you've got this really wrapped up ocean storm that the FV3 has. And, oh, yeah, I mean, this is how you've got this northeast flow from northeastern Canada. This is how you get brutally cold here. So this is going to have a negative NAO signature. This is what it's going to do. So the snapshot print makes complete sense. This is what you would wind up seeing in terms of the surface with a setup like that. Does it happen? I don't know, but it's pretty brutal in the long range in terms of the cold air. That is insane. All right. And speaking of insane, it is insane. 1 hour and 12 minutes going through this. Bobby Whitaker, thanks for hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. You're going to get a cigar. You're on the Patreon page, so, you don't have to do that. I really appreciate it, though. Thank you. It gets me a cigar and makes me a happy camper. So if you are interested, folks, a great way to support my channel. It's so easy. And you get, you're getting a lot of weather. The Patreon folks that are on there will tell you, and they're on here on the live stream, and they'll tell you, I'm at it all day long on most days. I'm actually taking a little bit of a break tonight because not much is going to change. But it's $2 a month, and you get private live streams just for Patreon members. You get extra posts. You get tools to play with. You get to go to a little bit of weather school, and it's a lot of fun. So and I get a couple of cigars out of it, and I'm thrilled. I'm not looking to get rich. I just just trying to get through day to day like everybody else. Brandon Doherty, thank you so much for hitting Super Chat tonight. Really, really appreciate it greatly. Okay, so tomorrow being Sunday, there will be a Patreon live stream. I will do one in the morning, and we will do a regular YouTube live stream tomorrow evening. Gonna try to do it after football, but before the premiere of Victoria, which I've been watching on PBS. I love that series. Victoria, The Crown, and I'm waiting for The Favorite to come because I'm a SAG member, so I got to vote on the SAG Awards. So, so I'm going to try to squeeze it in. So figure somewhere between 7 and 9, somewhere in there, but probably closer to 7. We'll get it done. Much of whatever will happen tomorrow will have just kind of been winding down, so we'll spend more time looking at the long range. And other than that, just look for stuff on the website. If you're on Patreon there, if you're on my free weather app, it's on Google Play, meteorologist Joe Cioffi, or just put in Joe Cioffi. The spelling is right there, Cioffi, and it should come up. And hopefully soon we'll have the iPhone version. Still waiting. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for being here. We will, Saints, by the way. I'm a Giant fan, but I also lived in New Orleans and worked there. So I root for the Giants first. And if the Giants aren't there, which they aren't and haven't been for a while, then I go to the Saints. So I will be rooting for the Saints. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll see you either tomorrow morning if you're one of the Patreon folks, or we'll see you sometime tomorrow evening.